Bullies tried to rip the pants of the new girl. Big mistake. She took revenge. Maya Rodriguez had always been the kind of student who preferred the shadows to the spotlight, moving through life with the careful precision of someone who had learned early that invisibility was often the safest path. At 18, she navigated the sprawling corridors of Riverside High School like a ghost, her slight frame and reserved demeanor making her practically invisible to most of her classmates. Standing barely 5 feet 2 inches tall and weighing no more than 110 pounds, Maya kept her dark hair pulled back in a simple ponytail that revealed delicate features and intelligent brown eyes that seemed to absorb everything while revealing nothing. She wore oversized sweaters that seemed to swallow her petite figure, paired with loose-fitting jeans and worn sneakers that had seen better days, carrying her books clutched tightly against her chest like a shield against the world. What her classmates didn't know, what none of them could have guessed from her quiet exterior, was that Maya had spent the last 8 years training in mixed martial arts at her uncle's gym in San Diego. Under the tutelage of Ricardo Rodriguez, a former competitive fighter who had earned his reputation in tournaments before transitioning into coaching, Maya had earned a black belt in karate, become proficient in Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and developed skills in Muay Thai kickboxing that would have impressed even experienced practitioners. Her uncle, a man who understood the responsibility that came with knowledge and skill, had taught her that true strength came from discipline and control, not from seeking conflicts or showing off. He had drilled into her the importance of restraint, the necessity of using her skills only when absolutely necessary, and the moral obligation to never become the aggressor. The bullying started during her second week at Riverside High School, a sprawling complex of red brick buildings that housed nearly 3,000 students from across the city. Maya's family had moved from San Diego after her father's job transfer brought them to this mid-sized Illinois town, and she found herself navigating the complex social hierarchy of a new school where everyone seemed to have already formed their cliques and alliances. The transition from her old school, where she had been just another face in the crowd, to this new environment where she stood out as an outsider had been jarring and uncomfortable. The leader of her tormentors was Jessica Walsh, a popular senior with shoulder-length blonde hair and a confident smile who ruled the school's social scene with practiced ease. At 18, Jessica stood nearly 6 feet tall, her athletic build a testament to her years on the volleyball team, and she carried herself with the confidence of someone who had never faced real consequences for her actions. Her 2 loyal followers, Madison Brooks and Ashley Cooper, were always ready to laugh at her jokes and participate in whatever scheme she devised. Madison, an 18-year-old red-haired senior with freckles and a sharp wit, had earned her place in Jessica's inner circle through her ability to craft cutting remarks that could embarrass other students. Ashley, an 18-year-old brunette senior who desperately wanted to fit in with the popular girls, was always eager to prove herself by following Jessica's lead. They had identified Maya as an easy target from day one, someone who wouldn't fight back and whose quiet nature made her the perfect victim for their entertainment. It was Madison who first noticed Maya sitting alone in the cafeteria, methodically eating her lunch while reading a worn paperback novel. It was Ashley who pointed out how Maya's clothes looked like they came from a thrift store, noting how the new girl seemed to keep to herself whenever anyone looked in her direction. And it was Jessica who decided that Maya would become their new focus, a decision that would prove to be one of the worst mistakes of her life. It began with small things that seemed almost accidental to casual observers. Jessica would bump into Maya in the hallway, causing her to drop her books and scramble to collect them, while other students stepped over the scattered papers without a second glance. The collision would appear unintentional, just another moment of clumsiness in the crowded halls. But Maya could see the satisfaction in Jessica's eyes as she watched her gather her belongings. Madison would make comments about Maya's clothes when she thought no one was listening, whispering to Ashley about how the new girl dressed like she shopped at second-hand stores. Her voice would carry just far enough for Maya to hear, each word carefully chosen to make her feel self-conscious. Ashley, not to be outdone by her companions, would knock Maya's backpack off her shoulder as she passed, watching as the shy girl bent down to gather her belongings yet again. Sometimes she would time it perfectly so that Maya's books would scatter across the floor just as the hallway filled with students rushing to their next class, creating minor chaos and embarrassment. Maya endured these incidents silently, reminding herself of her uncle's teachings about avoiding unnecessary conflicts and not using her skills unless absolutely necessary. The harassment escalated over the following weeks, becoming more frequent and more creative as the trio grew bolder. During lunch, Jessica would lead her friends to Maya's table, where she sat alone reading a book and make loud comments about how sad it was that some people had no friends. They would laugh as they walked away, their voices carrying across the cafeteria and drawing stares from other students who were grateful not to be the target themselves. Maya would continue reading, her face burning with embarrassment, while the words on the page blurred together as she fought back tears. In the gym, Madison would accidentally serve volleyballs in Maya's direction during PE class, apologizing with fake sincerity while Jessica and Ashley giggled behind their hands. The serves would come faster than necessary, forcing Maya to dodge awkwardly. But when she complained to the teacher, Madison would claim it was an accident and point to her generally good behavior as evidence. The teacher, overwhelmed by the chaos of trying to manage 30 teenagers in a gymnasium, would accept the explanation and move on, leaving Maya feeling frustrated and helpless. The locker room became another source of stress, where Ashley would hide Maya's gym clothes, forcing her to search frantically before the next class period. Sometimes she would move them to a different locker. Sometimes she would stuff them behind other equipment. And once she even put them in the lost and found, forcing Maya to explain to the office staff why her clothes had ended up there. The pranks were deliberate and systematic, designed to wear down Maya's confidence and establish the clear hierarchy that Jessica demanded. Maya's inner turmoil grew with each passing day, a constant battle between her desire for peace and her growing frustration at the injustice of her situation. She knew she could end this harassment, could show these girls exactly what she was capable of, but her uncle's voice echoed in her mind constantly. He had taught her that martial arts were for protection and self-defense, not for settling scores or proving points. She remembered the hours they had spent discussing the responsibility that came with her training, how she must never be the aggressor, and how physical confrontation should always be the last resort. Her uncle had made her promise that she would never use her skills to hurt someone unless she was truly threatened, and Maya took that promise seriously, even as her tormentors made her life increasingly difficult. The emotional toll of the constant harassment began to affect every aspect of Maya's life. She found herself dreading each school day, lying awake at night wondering what new embarrassment awaited her. Her grades began to suffer as she struggled to concentrate on her studies while constantly watching for the next incident. She stopped eating lunch in the cafeteria, instead hiding in the library where she could find some peace among the books. Her parents noticed the change in her behavior, but attributed it to the stress of adjusting to a new school, never suspecting the systematic targeting their daughter endured on a daily basis. The situation reached a breaking point on a Tuesday morning in late October, when the autumn air carried a chill that matched the heaviness in Maya's heart. She was walking to her locker between classes when she noticed Jessica, Madison, and Ashley approaching from the opposite direction, their expressions mischievous and eager. The hallway was crowded with students heading to their next period, creating the perfect audience for whatever prank the trio had planned. Maya tried to keep her head down and walk past them, but Jessica stepped directly into her path, forcing her to stop. The move was deliberate, calculated, and unmistakably hostile. The other students began to slow down, sensing that something was about to happen and not wanting to miss the show. Maya could feel their eyes on her, could hear the whispered comments and excited murmurs as word spread that something was about to go down. She felt trapped, cornered like a wild animal with nowhere to run, her heart pounding so hard she was sure everyone could hear it. "Well, well, well," Jessica said loudly, her voice carrying across the hallway with the confidence of someone who had never faced real consequences for her actions. "If it isn't little Maya, scurrying through the halls like a frightened mouse." Madison and Ashley flanked her on either side, forming a semicircle that trapped Maya against the lockers. Their positions were strategic, blocking any possible escape route while ensuring that Maya would be the center of attention for everyone in the hallway. "You know, girls," Jessica continued, pausing for dramatic effect and making sure she had everyone's attention, "I've been thinking about our quiet little friend here, and I've come to a conclusion." Her smile was mocking and calculated, the expression of someone who enjoyed being the center of attention. "I think Maya here is hiding something under all those baggy clothes. What do you think? Maybe she's not as plain as she pretends to be." The crowd of students had grown larger now, forming a loose circle around the confrontation like spectators at a show. Maya felt her heart pounding as she realized that Jessica was building up to something bigger than her usual verbal teasing. The anticipation in the air was palpable, electric with the kind of excitement that comes from watching someone else's embarrassment. She clutched her books tighter and tried to step around the girls, but Madison moved to block her path, while Ashley positioned herself on the other side. The hallway had become noticeably quieter, except for the sound of Maya's rapid breathing and the occasional whisper from the watching students. "I bet she's wearing something really embarrassing under that conservative outfit," Madison chimed in, her voice carrying a tone of fake concern. "Maybe we should help her show everyone what she's really like." Her freckled face was animated with excitement, her green eyes bright with the prospect of taking their pranks to a new level. Ashley nodded enthusiastically, her brown hair bouncing as she practically vibrated with anticipation, her phone already in her hand as she prepared to document whatever was about to happen. Maya's stomach dropped as she realized what they were planning, the full scope of their intended prank becoming clear. She took a step backward, only to feel the cold metal of the lockers against her back, the harsh surface pressing against her spine and eliminating any possibility of retreat. The trap was complete, the stage set for her public embarrassment. "Please," Maya whispered, her voice barely audible above the murmur of the crowd. "Just leave me alone." But her plea only seemed to encourage the girls, who exchanged knowing glances and stepped closer. The desperation in her voice seemed to fuel their confidence, confirmation that they had found her breaking point and were about to push her over the edge. Jessica reached out and grabbed the waistband of Maya's jeans, her fingers finding the belt loops with practiced ease. "Come on, Maya," she said with a twisted smile, her voice loud enough for everyone to hear. "Don't be shy. Let's see what you're hiding under there." The threat was clear, the intention unmistakable, and Maya felt a surge of panic as she realized that Jessica actually intended to embarrass her in front of the entire school. The attack happened quickly, with the practiced efficiency of bullies who had done similar things before. Jessica yanked on Maya's jeans, while Madison grabbed her arms to prevent her from protecting herself, her grip firm, but not painful. Ashley positioned herself to block any potential escape route, her phone already out and ready to record the embarrassment for social media distribution. Maya felt the fabric of her jeans strain and heard the sound of stitching beginning to stretch as Jessica pulled, her face showing determination and misplaced confidence. The watching students began to laugh and pull out their phones, anticipating capturing the moment for social media. The sound of their laughter was like a shock to Maya's system, each cruel giggle a reminder of how alone she was in this moment. She could see the excitement in their eyes, the way they leaned forward to get a better view of her humiliation, and she realized that this was entertainment for them, a break from the monotony of their school day. But something awakened inside Maya in that moment, a confidence that had been dormant under weeks of accumulated frustration and embarrassment. All the silent endurance, all the times she had walked away when she could have stood up for herself, all the nights she had wondered why she had to be the target, suddenly crystallized into a clear determination that burned away her hesitation like morning fog. She felt her uncle's training flow through her mind, 8 years of discipline and technique coming to the surface, muscle memory taking over as her thoughts became focused and clear. Her right hand moved in a swift, controlled motion that caught Jessica's wrist, applying just enough pressure to a specific point that made her immediately release her grip on Maya's jeans. Jessica's eyes went wide with surprise and discomfort as she found her hand suddenly unable to maintain its hold, her confidence evaporating as she realized Maya wasn't as helpless as she appeared. The technique was precise and effective without causing any real harm, designed to break a grip rather than cause injury. Before Madison could tighten her hold or react to what had happened, Maya had twisted smoothly out of her grasp with a fluid motion that would have impressed her uncle. Her movement was so quick and controlled that Madison found herself holding empty air, stumbling slightly as she tried to understand what had just happened. Madison took a step back, her face showing confusion and surprise rather than pain, her hands reaching out as if trying to grab something that was no longer there. The crowd fell silent as Maya straightened up, her entire demeanor transformed in the space of seconds. The shy, frightened girl who had been their victim just moments before had vanished, replaced by someone who moved with the controlled grace of a trained athlete. Her stance was balanced and confident, her eyes alert and focused, her breathing steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. Ashley, who had been so confident moments before, now took a step back as she saw the change in Maya's posture, the quiet strength that had replaced the fear. "You want to see what I'm hiding?" Maya said, her voice steady and clear, carrying across the silent hallway with newfound authority. "Let me show you." What followed was a masterclass in controlled technique, a demonstration of skill that left no doubt about Maya's capabilities while showing remarkable restraint. She moved with the precision of someone who had spent years perfecting her craft, each action calculated for maximum effect without causing any real harm. Her uncle had taught her well, and every lesson, every hour of training, every principle about control and responsibility all came together in this moment of perfect execution. Jessica, still shaking out her wrist, tried to regain her composure and reach for Maya again, but Maya was already moving. A perfectly executed sweep of her leg caught Jessica off balance, sending her tumbling to the floor in an undignified heap rather than a painful crash. Jessica landed on her back, her blonde hair spreading across the linoleum, more shocked and embarrassed than hurt, as she stared up at the ceiling lights in disbelief. Madison, still confused about how Maya had escaped her grip, tried to approach from behind, thinking she could use her size advantage to control the smaller girl. But Maya had anticipated the move, her training allowing her to sense the approach before it came. She pivoted smoothly, caught Madison's arm, and used the redhead's own momentum against her in a perfect redirection that sent her gently but firmly to the floor beside her friend. Madison landed with more surprise than pain, her eyes wide as she tried to process how effortlessly she had been neutralized. Ashley, seeing her two companions on the floor, attempted to back away, her nerve finally breaking as she realized that this was not going according to plan. But Maya was faster, her hand shooting out to catch Ashley's wrist in a grip that was firm but not painful. A simple twist and guide brought Ashley down to join her friends, her phone sliding across the floor as she found herself sitting on the hallway linoleum with a look of complete bewilderment. The entire confrontation lasted less than 30 seconds, but in that time, Maya had completely reversed the power dynamic that had defined her experience at Riverside High School. The three girls who had made her life difficult for weeks, who had seemed so confident and in control, now sat on the floor in various states of confusion and embarrassment, while Maya stood over them completely composed. Her breathing was steady, her stance relaxed but ready, and there was a calmness about her that spoke of complete control and confidence. The crowd of students stared in amazement, their phones forgotten as they tried to process what they had just witnessed. The quiet new girl, the one they had dismissed as shy and passive, had just neutralized three of the school's most confident students with an efficiency that was both impressive and surprisingly gentle. The silence was profound, broken only by the sound of normal breathing and occasional whispers of disbelief. "Let me make something very clear," Maya said, her voice carrying to every corner of the silent hallway, with the authority of someone who had found her confidence and was not afraid to use it. "I never wanted any trouble. I just wanted to be left alone to get my education and live my life in peace. But you three decided that wasn't going to happen. You decided that I was weak, that I was an easy target, that I would just take whatever you dished out." She looked down at Jessica, who was still sitting on the floor, her face red with embarrassment and disbelief. "You were wrong." The aftermath of the confrontation spread through Riverside High School like wildfire, carried by social media and word of mouth with the speed that only teenage gossip can achieve. Within hours, everyone knew about the quiet new girl who had stood up to three of the school's most notorious troublemakers in a matter of seconds. The video footage that several students had captured showed Maya's incredible composure and skill in stunning detail, and word quickly spread about her martial arts background and the systematic targeting that had led to the confrontation. Teachers who had previously overlooked the bullying situation, who had dismissed Maya's quiet demeanor as simple shyness, suddenly took notice of what had been happening under their noses. Principal Henderson, a tall man with graying hair and a reputation for fairness, called Maya into his office for a lengthy discussion about the incident. The conversation lasted over an hour, with Maya explaining her side of the story calmly and honestly, describing weeks of harassment and the final assault that had triggered her response. Maya showed the principal the stretched fabric of her jeans as evidence of what Jessica had attempted to do, and several witnesses came forward to corroborate her account of the systematic targeting she had endured. Students who had previously been too afraid to speak up now found their voices, telling Principal Henderson about the weeks of harassment they had witnessed. The picture that emerged was one of sustained psychological pressure, deliberate and calculated pranks that had been allowed to continue because no one had the courage to intervene. While the principal was obligated to address all students involved in the physical confrontation, Maya's consequence was reduced to a brief meeting with the school counselor after the full scope of the bullying became clear. Jessica, Madison, and Ashley each received several days of in-school suspension and mandatory counseling, along with a formal warning that would remain on their records. The school also implemented new policies regarding bullying and harassment, with clearer consequences for those who engaged in such behavior. The change in Maya's status at school was immediate and dramatic, like stepping from shadow into sunlight. Students who had previously ignored her now approached her with respect and curiosity, wanting to know more about the quiet girl who had such incredible skills. The martial arts club, which had been struggling for membership and barely maintaining its existence, suddenly found itself with a waiting list after Maya agreed to join and help with instruction. Her expertise and patient teaching style quickly made her one of the most respected students in the school. Teachers began to see her as a leader rather than a victim, and she found herself invited to participate in school activities that had previously been closed to her. The debate team recruited her for her calm demeanor and analytical mind. The student council asked her to serve on the anti-bullying committee, and even the volleyball team expressed interest in her athletic abilities. Maya discovered that she had a talent for leadership and a natural ability to help others find their confidence. But perhaps the most significant change was in Maya herself. The confrontation had forced her to find a balance between her uncle's teachings about restraint and the necessity of standing up for herself. She had learned that sometimes, despite our best intentions to avoid conflict, we must be willing to defend our dignity and safety. The experience had taught her that there was a difference between being passive and being at peace, between avoiding conflict and allowing yourself to be diminished by it. Her uncle, when he learned about the incident through a phone call from Maya's parents, was proud of how she had handled herself. During their conversation, he noted that she had used only the minimum force necessary to stop the harassment and had shown remarkable control under pressure. He reminded her that true martial artists never seek out conflicts, but they also never allow themselves to be victims when they have the power to protect themselves. The balance between these two principles was the mark of a true practitioner, and Maya had found that balance in the most challenging circumstances imaginable. Jessica, Madison, and Ashley returned to school changed as well, their suspension having given them time to reflect on their actions and their consequences. The embarrassment of being so easily neutralized by someone they had considered weak had shaken their confidence and forced them to reevaluate their behavior. They found that their previous social status had been affected by the incident, with many students viewing them as bullies who had picked on someone smaller and quieter than themselves. Jessica, in particular, seemed to have learned a valuable lesson about the consequences of targeting others. The girl who had once commanded the school's social scene with confidence now found herself more isolated, her former friends having distanced themselves from her after the incident. She approached Maya during lunch one day, her usual arrogance replaced by something that resembled genuine remorse. "I wanted to apologize," Jessica said quietly, her voice barely above a whisper as she stood beside Maya's table in the cafeteria. "What we did to you was wrong, and you had every right to defend yourself. I know it doesn't excuse anything, but I hope you can forgive us someday." Maya looked at her former tormentor for a long moment, studying the genuine regret in her eyes, before nodding slowly. "I forgive you," she said simply, "but I hope this taught all of us something important." The incident at Riverside High School became a turning point not just for Maya, but for the entire school culture. Teachers began to take bullying reports more seriously, implementing new protocols for investigating and addressing harassment. Students became more aware of the impact their actions could have on others, and many began to speak up when they witnessed bullying rather than simply standing by and watching. As Maya walked through the halls of Riverside High School in the weeks that followed, she carried herself differently. The shy, frightened girl who had once tried to blend into the background had been replaced by someone who understood her own strength and wasn't afraid to use it when necessary. She had learned that sometimes the greatest victory comes not from avoiding conflict, but from standing up for yourself when you have no other choice. The quiet girl who had once been an easy target had become a respected figure, and everyone at Riverside High School knew it. But more importantly, Maya had learned that true strength comes not from the ability to overpower others, but from the wisdom to know when and how to protect yourself. She had faced her tormentors and emerged victorious, not through revenge or cruelty, but through the simple act of refusing to be a victim any longer.